Hi everyone, welcome back to the next diecast. In today's video, I'll be comparing the quality of these two 1/18 scale Datsun 240Z models. This one is made by Yatming Road Signatures, and this one is made by Maisto. So before we start off, I'm just gonna say some, differences right off the bat that aren't gonna really play into the quality comparisons. So first off, this one is a 1970, or this one's based off a 1970 240Z, and this one's based off a 1971 240Z. And on the real 240Zs between those 2 years, there were actually some differences between them. I was able to find out that there was sort of a Series 1 Datsun 240Z and a Series 2 Datsun 240Z. So this would be based off the Series 1, and this would be based off the Series 2. And really the only differences were mostly just small cosmetic changes, maybe some wheel style changes, a couple of vents were eliminated, and also some badging differences. So I guess right off the bat, we'll just get into that. So with the Series 1 240Z, in the back here, you have the 240Z inscription with that little kind of black circle behind it. And then when they changed the car to the Series 2 spec, I guess, they changed the badge to just a Z badge, which we've all come to know and love back here. Also, in the back, Series 1s had these two vents. Series 2 models did not have the two vents back here. And also the Datsun badge on the hood, I believe, was changed ever so slightly, but they're pretty much the same thing. But aside from that, yeah, that's pretty much the only difference between the Series 1 and Series 2 models. There might be some other differences that I missed, but I just wanted to get those out there before we got into kind of the quality comparison review of both of these models here. Now, in terms of availability and pricing, the Yatming version is no longer being made. It was made probably, I guess, from the late 1990s until sometime in like maybe early 2010s. The Maisto version was first introduced in 2010, and it's been made ever since then. Both came or have come in a variety of colors and everything. Currently, the Maisto version is available in this bright orange as well as a dark blue. And this year, Sam's Club released their kind of own exclusive color scheme where you have kind of bigger black wheels, and it's kind of like a metallic green paint, kind of bigger like wheel wells. Maisto has a design line where they actually have another version of the 240Z. It's kind of like a modified sort of version, so this review wouldn't really apply to that version, I guess, per se, because there are some significant differences between that and kind of the regular stock 240Z that Maisto makes. So the stock 240Z that Maisto makes has come in a variety of colors, as I already have pointed out. In the past, it was also made in, I think, a bright yellow and also like a darker green. The Road Signatures 240Z, it also came in a variety of colors. There was this white version, there was a dark green version with kind of a brownish interior, there was a dark blue version. There was also a racing version too. It was kind of the same thing as the stock 240Z you see here. It just had some racing, numbers and decals and whatnot on there. So in terms of variety, both models, I think, both model manufacturers, I think, did a great job in that sense and kind of offering several different colors and styles for both of these cars. Availability, the Maisto one is definitely going to be easier to find, at least as of right now, because it is still being produced. It has turned up at various wholesale clubs over the years. I got mine off of Amazon the last few months. It was an Amazon warehouse deals listing because it did have a damaged box and very slight paint damage, but I was able to get it off. It was just a black scuff mark above this pillar here, and I was able to just get that off very simply. The Road Signatures version, you'll probably have a better chance of finding on eBay than most other places. And you can find, loose out of the box versions for cheap, and you can find, mint in box versions in kind of lesser common colors for up towards of, $50 or $60. So in that sense, I think the Maisto version is more, I guess, reasonably priced and more available than the Road Signatures version, but I just wanted to put that out there before we kind of got into the quality differences. Okay, so kind of on to, I guess, the quality differences in terms of the exteriors of these models. So we'll get into the fronts here. Both models, I think, do a good job with the headlights and badging and grills in their fronts here. The Yatming version, I think, in terms of the headlight lenses, they do a better job, I think, with that kind of mesh-like pattern on the front. On the Maisto version, the kind of pattern is present, but you can't really feel the actual texture, and it's actually a little bit crooked looking. Like the lens was actually stuck on, I think, in like a crooked fashion. Whereas on the Yatming version, you can see that the lines are actually straight on both sides. And the texture is kind of more present. That being said, the Yatming version does have larger pegs than the Maisto version does. Although I think the pegs on this one are actually a little bit more hidden compared to the Maisto version, because of course on both the light bulbs would actually be where the pegs are. So in that sense, I think that the Yatming version sort of wins slightly over the Maisto in terms of the headlight detailing. The badges are both quite well done. You can clearly read Datsun across both of them, and they're both kind of done with kind of a raised up sort of metal look to them. They are not separate pieces, of course, but I think both manufacturers did a great job in that sense. I think the Yatming version, the badge looks a slight bit more like readable and flush to like the body than the Maisto version does, but I think both of these manufacturers did a great job. Both have nice looking lower bumpers and grills. Both grills are not necessarily perforated like all the way through, but they do have kind of a nice sort of slatted texture to them, I guess you could say. And both also do a good job of those lower turn signals that are kind of hidden. Although kind of a short point of both manufacturers is that they just paint on the indicator lights behind the headlights. I found it kind of odd for both cases that they would, do full separate plastic pieces for these lights, which you can barely see unless you have the model like this, the way that I'm kind of holding it up. But then for the visible lights, they just paint them on. So a little bit annoying, I guess, but at least the paint job is somewhat decent. On the Road Signatures version, the silver border is a little bit wider, I think, than the Maisto version is. I'm not sure which one is more correct in that sense, but that's just something to point out. Paint quality on both models is overall well done, although I think the Maisto version wins in the sense that it's kind of a much nicer, smooth, glossy finish throughout. On the Road Signature version, there are a few spots here and there. I don't know if it's just a factory defect or what. And then there is the orange peel going on in this kind of rear panel back here. Not really common to see that on Yatming models, but on this one it does have that. The Maisto version, you can even tell it looks shinier in certain lighting too. So I think Maisto version wins in terms of the overall paint job and paint quality. That being said, both from a distance look very well done if you pair up kind of the paint color with the interior look and like the wheel styles that these manufacturers picked. Both feature the Datsun inscription kind of behind the front wheel wells here. The Yatming version, I think, looks a little bit better. It kind of looks more, it kind of blends into the body a little bit more. The Maisto version has kind of a black background behind it. I believe the Series 1 and Series 2 models, they did have changes with the Datsun badging too. And both models, I think, do a great job of kind of replicating that on the sides here. Both are very clearly, painted on. They're both embossed kind of nicely into like the glossy paint work. They both did a great job in that sense. The wheels are different on both models here because you did have the option of several different wheel styles on the 240Z. Both models do feature steering, although I think on the Yatming version, the steering is actually better because the wheels actually stay in place when you steer them. On the Maisto, it kind of snaps back like just a slight bit. That being said, the Maisto version does feature the full suspension on all four wheels. The Yatming version does not, but that shouldn't be like a huge turn off, I guess. But both overall, wheel quality, I would say, is well done. You have the nice chrome band around the Maisto version here. The Yatming, you have actually these separate kind of chrome spokes on here and also the chrome kind of band going around it. So both, I think, did a great job in that sense. The side mirrors, the Maisto version, I think, is, or I should say the Yatming version, I think, is actually slightly better done than the Maisto version. That being said, they are both made of chrome plastic, and they're both very sturdy. Same thing with the wipers on both models, too. The Yatming kind of has a more, I guess, finer detailed look to the wipers, but they are a little bit too small, I think. Whereas on the Maisto version, they are the right size. They're just a little bit chunky looking, I think. But again, these aren't like really huge, shortcomings, I should say. And the vents are pretty much the same on both models. They're just integrated into like the metalwork here. There's those two badges back here. On both versions, you have kind of nice chrome and silver detailing around the windows. Like the rear window, the windshield, and also the side windows too. Although the Yatming version does score slightly higher because you can see they actually continue the separate chrome work around the side windows, whereas on the Maisto version, they just kind of painted it silver. At least they tried, at least they did something there. But yeah, it would have been nice to kind of see that as kind of chrome to sort of match the border around the windshield and the rear window as well. Back here, both rear bumpers look great. They're pretty much the same. They're chrome with kind of the black border going kind of on the perimeter. And you'll notice on the Maisto version, they actually include a little nub for the radio antenna. On the Yattming version, they don't include that, though. I imagine the radio was probably maybe like a factory option or something like that. And both do a good job with the taillights as well. There were slight changes, I think, to the taillights between the Series 1 and Series 2 versions. Datsun 240Z inscriptions both look great. They're both, kind of embossed very nicely into the paint and everything. Back here, you do have the proper venting that the 1970 models did come with. I think the border around the window is a little bit too wide, this kind of chrome here. On the Maisto version, it's actually the correct sort of thinness, I guess I should say. And it's actually painted silver. I think it should be chrome, but it's actually painted silver on here. The Yattming version has the more correct looking, I think, chrome going around the perimeter there. And in terms of the exhaust pipes, the Yattming version does not look that great. It's just kind of a solid silver sort of stick that kind of sticks out back here. The Maisto version is actually a hollowed out and true pipe, although it is done in chrome. So both, I think, have issues in that sense. I think the nice in-between would have been to have a silver exhaust pipe that's not chrome with kind of a hollowed out hole inside of it. But, I mean, that's not a big deal for both cases because the exhaust pipes are rather small on both these models anyway, so I don't think that's a big deal in that sense. Of course, on both, you do feature the opening rear hatches. Both feature decent detailing on the inside of their trunks here. The Yattming version actually includes kind of these luggage belts that go from like the front of the trunk to the rear. The Maisto version does not have that, although they do actually include a nice sort of diamond stitch pattern on these kind of sides here that go over the wheel wells. The Yattming version does not have that, but the Maisto version does. So they're both different in that sense. I think I do prefer the Yattming because it has this kind of trunk, like those luggage belts in there, and part on the dust. It's kind of hard to get the dust out from here. Yeah, that being said, the Maisto version does have, I think, a nicer texture overall, kind of a rougher texture to simulate carpeting. The texture in here is definitely too smooth, I would say. But overall, I think they both did a decent job in that sense. And the Maisto hatch does open a little bit higher than the Yattming hatch, although the dog legs are very thick in here. This one, they kind of do a better job of sort of hiding those hinges with the way that this opens up. Okay, in terms of engine detail, we'll take a look at that next. Of course, on both, you do have the opening hoods. They both open up at a pretty decent angle, I would say. Here's where you can definitely see some differences. The Maisto version is pretty much just all one molded plastic piece. And yeah, there is some color in there. You do have that kind of attempt of a blue wire going across the main block. You have the Datsun inscription going in like the center there. Aside from that, not really too much to see. I mean, there's just some like wiring kind of molded in there. Whereas on the Yattming version, you do have a true kind of three-dimensional molded engine in here. You see the main block's a separate silver piece. You have this kind of red component here. Definitely some missing wires here and there. Maisto sort of molds in all the wires a little bit with kind of that plastic piece. The Yattming, you can tell there's definitely some components missing on this kind of area here, unless, I don't know if it's a factory defect or if there actually wasn't anything there. The Maisto version, although, it looks complete for the most part, it is all just one kind of plastic piece with just a little bit of coloring in it. So the Yattming version, I think, sort of wins in the sense that it is a three-dimensional engine. There's at least kind of 6 different individual pieces or components in here, whereas the Maisto version is just kind of one, flat plastic piece. That being said, they both do, I think, a decent effort at kind of replicating these engines. The Yattming, underneath the hood, definitely not fully painted, and there is some like kind of underspray going on there. The Maisto version, they do actually fully paint the underside of the hood and even down to the hinges back here. So that's kind of a nice touch. The Maisto hood itself feels a little bit better to open and close than the Yattming version. There's kind of this like stiff feeling to the Yattming version. You feel like it's gonna like become off-centered or even break. So I try not to open up the hood on this one too much. And same thing with this hood here. Eventually they're both gonna kind of, weaken and not hold up by themselves. So don't open the hoods or rear hatches on these models too much, because you will kind of want to, make them last, I should say. We'll take a look next at the interior detailing of both models. Of course, you do have opening doors on both versions here. They're both kind of very tightly opening doors. The Yattming version's doors do open wider than the Maisto version's door. That's because on the Yattming, you do have the dogleg hinges. That being said, they are huge dogleg hinges. These are, I think, some of the biggest I've actually seen. On the Maisto version, you actually have these spring-loaded hinges, so they're a little bit more hidden, I think. But that being said, you can't open the doors too wide on here. So I don't think that's I think that might be a little bit of a shortcoming, but I mean, that's not too big of a deal, I don't think. You will see that on the Maisto version, you do have the fully kind of framed out door, like the window frames on here. The Yatming version you don't, though I imagine that one of the changes between the two series might have been, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they have the window frames on the doors. But go ahead, if I'm wrong on that, go ahead and correct me in the comments. But door panel detailing on both, I would say, is actually very well done. You have kind of a nice texture on both. The Maisto texture, I think, is a little bit better in the sense that it kind of feels more like the leather that you would see on the real car. And you actually have functional door pockets on here, too. They have nicely kind of molded in like window winders. Same thing on the Yatming version. I don't think it should be this small and actually chrome. I think the Maisto version kind of has the more correct look to it. But both manufacturers, I think, did an overall good effort in both cases here. Both manufacturers do a good job with the overall seat detailing, although I think the Yatming version, you have kind of a more leather-like texture to them, almost like an upper-end model manufacturer would include. It kind of has a more like authentic texture to them, although I think both manufacturers nail the overall look and shape of the seats. Yatming kind of takes it a step further with like a leather-like texture, I would say, for sure. On both, the dashboard detailing is actually quite well done. Although on the Maisto version, you actually do have painted on buttons, whereas on the Yatming version, you do not, which is kind of odd to see that. Both have kind of a nice kind of texture on the dashboards themselves. The Maisto version and the Yatming version both have kind of that nicely done gauge cluster going on in the center there. And both include the separately cast shifters and the parking brakes too, which is nice to see in both cases here. Just wish the Yatming had more kind of button detailing. And on the Maisto version, the steering wheel is actually better detailed too. They actually include the Datsun inscription in the center with kind of that silver circle and the kind of hole pattern on the spokes too. That being said, I think the coloring of the Yatming steering wheel looks a little bit better. It looks less like a sort of cheap, like orange look, and has kind of a more brownish orange look to it. But that being said, you don't have the Datsun logo in the center. I wish they did include that. Go ahead and close up all the doors on here. Now we'll take a look next at the undercarriages of both of these models here. Yatming, I think, does definitely do a better job overall, because as you see here on the Maisto, it's not fully like three-dimensional, and what is there, it's just all kind of chromed out. I do have to hold this or else it is going to, oh wait, actually no. Now watch it fall down as I look away. Anyway, the exhaust on, you can already see the chrome kind of fading a little bit on here, whereas on the Yatming version, it is actually painted silver, so you will not have to worry about any kind of, paint or chrome fading. They do include kind of three-dimensional engine components underneath here. You can even see the working steering system too, which is very cool to see. The Maisto version, it is kind of all hidden with sort of these plastic panels down here. At least they do include some detailing with that, chrome exhaust system. But I would definitely say that the Yatming version sort of wins in terms of a more authentic looking undercarriage. Overall, it is kind of cool to see that both these manufacturers do their own Datsun 240Z. And if you're like a big fan of the 240Z, you may end up actually getting both because you have kind of the two different years, two different, series in that sense as well. But I would say in terms of just overall quality, the Yatming does score slightly over the Maisto version. There is some of the issues like paintwork and everything. But aside from that, and then in terms of kind of, ease of finding and kind of pricing, the Maisto version, I think, wins in that sense, in like that category. So ultimately, I think it would be up to you in terms of your overall preference. Do you want to have kind of higher quality, but kind of have a more difficult time finding like a decently priced Datsun model? Or do you want to have kind of a decently priced and easy to find Datsun model? Both of these, I would say, would look amazing on your shelf, especially if you have other, classic Datsun models or, just Japanese cars in general in that sense too. So feel free to comment down below with your thoughts on both of these models and which one might be your favorite. And I'd be kind of curious to see what your thoughts are on that for sure. As always, hope this kind of overview or comparison of both models was helpful, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.